everybody, it is your boy Jabbar back again with another video. Another car video to be exact. I know I said in my last video that I wasn't going to do another car video, that I'll be back in my living room, but the lie detector determined that that was a lie.
The lie detector determined that was a lie.
This episode of Lovecraft Country is episode 7, which was entitled I Am, and was supposed to, or is centering, and the main focus of this episode is Hippolyta. You know, for the past couple episodes now, especially with, you know, we got Jamie Chung's character, Gia, last episode, it seems like we're going based off of, like, the director decided, Misha Green decided to, like, switch it up a little bit. Because we were getting so much jam-packed into episodes at the beginning, and now it seems like it's more sort of character-based. Like, we're going by characters ever since we sort of went with Journey's character, Letty, and then we got Ruby, and then we get Jamie Chung's character, Gia, and then we get, of course, we have now gotten Hippolyta. So it seems to be character-based, and then next episode seems to be like we're going to get more into Dee's character and how she's going to, you know, sort of push the plot forward, essentially. I sort of surprisingly had a lot of issues with this episode. I think that this episode brought up a lot of issues about the series as a whole. I didn't really have issues with what was being said or anything that was being done. Well, I did have some issues with stuff that was being done, but I think that I really wasn't thinking about the issues of the series as a whole, as the entirety of like a collection of stories all put together to sort of create one big story. I wasn't thinking about it in that way. I was just taking it episode by episode. But now that we've sort of gotten to the 7th episode and we only have 3 more episodes left, I sort of started to think about the issues that I have with the series as a whole. And first, I want to start with Tick and Letty. So Tick and Letty, we enter again their relationship again after coming off of, you know, that GI episode where Letty is having a dream, the same dream as Tick. Where she is chasing, you know, his great grandmother Hannah, who was a slave woman, who was also raped by her slave master, who was the Braithwaites, which is why Tick is even related to the Braithwaites in the first place, because she was pregnant at the time. And so we see, you know, Lady having the same exact dream that Tick was having a few episodes ago, where they're chasing Hannah, a pregnant Hannah, through the Braithwaite house as it is burning down, sort of taking the path. You know, she stops to sort of mumble or, you know, sort of say something to them, mouth something to them, and they're trying to figure out what it is. And as they're trying to figure out what it is, they catch on fire. Only this time, with Letty, instead of, you know, Tick just catches on fire, but Letty gets, you know, she sees herself pregnant in this dream, and then she catches on fire. Her and her baby catch on fire, and it's really kind of off-putting and gruesome and interesting. I was like, automatically, this is a nod to the fact that Letty is clearly pregnant. And even in a later scene when her and Ruby are talking, and she can't really stand the smell of garlic, and then Ruby just comes out and says that you might be pregnant. And so we pretty much know Letty is pregnant. That's why she's probably having the same sort of dreams. There is sort of this sort of magical link between there's now this, she has a sort of magical connection or magical link or mysticism about her because she is carrying, you know, Tick's baby, and because they are of Braithwaite blood. But this is where one of my issues come in with this series. The fact that, you know, the power of our black characters comes from their associations with whiteness and comes from their relations to whiteness. And I didn't think about this. I didn't think about this throughout the entirety of these episodes and of this series, but it's really not sitting right with me now. It really, like, when Lady starts having these dreams because essentially she's pregnant and she's carrying Tick's baby, and we all know that Tick is related to the Braithwaites because, you know, the slave master, you know, Mr. Braithwaite, or what is his name, Titus Braithwaite, raped his great-great-grandmother. And so that's how they have this sort of magical lineage. You know, it's just like, so our power comes from white people? I don't know. I don't really like that. I don't like that messaging at all. I didn't notice it. It's always been there, but I'm just now noticing it that now that, like, Letty is sort of now has sort of magical powers because of the baby that she's carrying. And she also has this sort of magical link and magical connection. She finds out, of course, that, she's been having the same, she has the same dream as Tick, because she tells him about it, and he's like, yo, that's the same dream I've been having. We do get Tick and Letty going to, then we see them going to Montrose his place. We see Montrose and Sammy sort of, Montrose has sort of opened up a little bit, seemingly a little bit anyway. At the beginning of the episode, we see him come out. Sammy's cooking breakfast after, I'm guessing, a night of lovemaking. Montrose is seemingly happy. They're both happy. Sammy's talking about how this is the first time that, Montrose has let him spend the night and stay over. And it seems to be going well at first, and then Sammy mentions the fact that a neighbor, how did he go? He went and got, of course, groceries, because Montrose doesn't keep anything in his fridge except for Hennessy, or was it Hennessy, or was it Jack Daniels, or was it tequila? I forget what it was. I want to say it was some type of brown liquor. Goes to the store. He tells Montrose that he went to the Sammy tells Montrose that he went to the store to get some food to make for breakfast, and Montrose starts getting worried. We just see his face sort of drop a little bit, and he was like, did anybody see you? And he was like, yeah, your neighbor did. And that's when Montrose's whole demeanor changes. Like, I really feel like Montrose and both Aunjanue Ellis, I'm going to get to Aunjanue Ellis, Michael K. Williams, who plays Montrose, and Aunjanue Ellis, who plays Hippolyta, they're really giving a master class in in acting right now, because they do so much emoting. I've said this before, they do so much emoting with their faces. They don't have to say anything, but you just see like the tone completely changes after Montrose realizes that people have seen Sammy, leave his place and also come back to his place. His face just sort of drops, and his whole demeanor changes. And then of course we get that dialogue where he starts like nitpicking Sammy about how the food is cooked and how he doesn't like his food cooked this way, and Sammy just is like, you do this every time, you do this every fucking time. We start getting close. Every time I think we're making progress and you're accepting who you are, you pull back away from me, essentially. And so Sammy is like, I'm not taking this shit anymore. I'm going to leave. I think last episode I said I wanted to know more about Sammy and Montrose's relationship. So we are getting a little bit of that, a little bit of a view and peek into their relationship a little bit here. I do want to kind of know I did want to know the backstory. Like, I would love to know the backstory, but I don't think we're going to probably get a backstory of how Sammy and Montrose came to be. But he starts to leave, and that's when Tick and Letty sort of see them in the hallway arguing. We see Montrose, of course, has his shirt off, and Tick, just looks at his, Sammy just walks away quickly and says, I'll talk to y'all later or whatever. Y'all have some stuff to talk about probably. And then Tick just looks at Montrose with disgust and shame. Or at least what we think is disgust and shame at first. And he calls him the F word. He calls him, so you are an, insert, derogatory name for gay people here. And it's a really it's a really hard hitting scene for me, a really emotionally packed scene. And we see Montrose then trying to he sort of has become emasculated in a way, he feels like, by his son, who he has abused for a very long time. And we see him try to sort of save face, and he takes off the rest of his shirt, and he's sort of beating his chest, and he's saying, I'm still your dad, I'm still your father, da 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 da, and I'll still beat your ass, even though we know that Montrose just got his ass beat not too long ago. And then Tick just runs away down into sort of the alleyway, and he starts kicking and punching stuff, and then he sort of lets us in a little bit. He lets Letty in a little bit when she comes downstairs, and he essentially says, all my life I thought it was me. Essentially he thought that the reason why his father beat him is because he thought that he was inadequate, and it turned out that he was the one who felt inadequate, and that's the reason why he beat me. So, and I like that they went. I like that they went there. Like, I like that they didn't shy away from it. I know probably a lot of people are gonna have some issues with Tick saying the F word, but this, again, like I said before, this is the 1950s. I don't expect the characters to be woke. So Tick and Letty went to Montrose's place to essentially look for, they think that Hannah might have taken from their dreams that they have, from the sort of common denominator of their dreams that they have. They see Hannah holding a book. They think it might be the book of Braithwaite. Braithwaite with all of the spells in it that he had created and came up with, and all of the magic. So they're like, well, while Christine is just looking for a few pages, we could actually go and find the whole book, because I think Hannah might have taken it, because what book would be so important that Hannah would need to go back for and go get during the fire? And it would probably be the book of Braithwaite. And we also get some backstory that Hannah's family, Tick's family, relocated after the whole Braithwaite situation. They relocated to Tulsa, Oklahoma, which I find very interesting, that they relocated to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and that then got burned down as well. So she survived sort of two fires and two sort of incidents of racial violence. And they're trying to go and look for. And if you remember before, Montrose also says before it smells like Tulsa, so clearly Montrose was there as well. I wish we got more about Tulsa, like in this, since it's always mentioned and referenced that they relocated to Tulsa, and that's where they had. Then after they left Tulsa, after Tulsa was burned down, after they survived Tulsa, they then went, of course, to Chicago. But we never get, the backstory of what happened in Tulsa or how they got out. Hopefully we get something. We only have 3 episodes left. I doubt we're going to get it, which is one of my issues, is that I feel like we spent some time on things that that even though they're interesting, like they really don't push the plot forward or have anything directly to do with the story. But I'm going to get to that a little bit later. They sort of, get a lead. Montrose ends up giving Letty a lead that one of Hannah's cousins or something lives in like St. Louis, and she might know where the book is if they have it. So Tick plans out to go to St. Louis, in St. Louis, Kentucky, I think it is St. Louis, Kentucky. And of course they run into Hippolyta they want to borrow Woody, Uncle George's car that they used the first time, and she's like, no, I'm using it right now. And it's just very like that scene where Tick just blatantly goes up and asks Hippolyta for the car, and Hippolyta is just like, she's just disgusted with Tick at this point. She does not even like this nigga at all. She doesn't like him at all. She is just disgusted. It's just a very it's a very tense scene, and very few words are said. And I love when they do that and they play with that in this episode and in these episodes and in the series, when they play with the fact that they play with like the fact that there's no words spoken, but you can just feel the tension sort of building. Let's get into Hippolyta though a little bit. So Hippolyta has spent most of this entire episode trying to figure out how to open up this sort of machine that has the solar system in it, the solar system with the two suns, or the universe with the two suns. She ends up figuring out. She spends sort of weeks on it. We get flashbacks. She spends weeks on it in her room. We get flashbacks of her being at the Braithwaite house, burned down, like there's still rubble there, and she ends up finding Uncle George's the book that Dee gave, the comic book that Dee gave Uncle George to read, about, it's like what I want to say, Eurythia Blue or something like that is the name of the comic book, about this sort of futuristic black girl, superhero type of thing. And she finds it, and she knows from that point on that they lied, and that he didn't die because of a sheriff, that he died for some other reason, and she wants to know why. She wants to figure out why, and she sort of racks her brain, and she thinks that the key to finding out what happened to him is opening up this machine, this sort of solar system, this replica of the solar system with two suns. She ends up figuring it out, that the planets need to be turned on their axis, because she sees it sort of upside down, sideways, and so she turns the two sort of orb spheres upside down on their axis, and then it starts to like light up and swirl around, and then it opens up, and there's a key inside. I forget what it said. There's an inscription in there, something about the beginning never starts or something like that. Remind me in the comments below if you know what it is. But I thought that it was always going to be that she needed to find a key to open up the machine, but in fact the machine has a key in it that she needs to then go to the court, because it also gives the coordinates for a location where the key can be used. And of course she goes and uses Woody to then go to this sort of, it's sort of this like telescope. There's like this telescope Hubble place, this sort of big telescope Hubble place. I think it's located in Kansas. We get, a visual of a map that is beside Hippolyta as she is driving along. And it says Kansas on it, so I'm assuming it was a map of Kansas. So this where this Hubble sort of telescope place is in Kansas. She sees, I think her name was, is it Bessie Springfield or something like that, If I'm getting her name wrong, just correct me in the comment section below. But the black woman who traveled across, the entire American landscape during the Jim Crow South, during segregation. She made her way, across country all by herself. It was a very, like, I guess it was, people were pointing out that this was a very, like, monumental moment to see a black woman, the sort of symbolism of a black woman traveling by herself during this era, just on her sort of motorcycle, all by herself, all the dangers that black people face going along the road, and all she had was herself, and she still made it back and forth. Like, the symbolism of that has always been very powerful. So we see her sort of, drive along with Hippolyta at one point, which I thought was a good nod. We have been constantly getting nods to sort of historical figures and history and moments and stuff that happened. That stuff has happened in Black American history. We also get in another scene we get one of the kids saying, "When is Bobo coming back so we can beat y'all at spades?" But of course we know that Bobo isn't coming back because he's going to die essentially, which also goes to this horror aspect, the sort of mystical horror aspect and cosmic horror aspect. I feel like racism in itself is a horror, and then just the monsters that we get on top of that, it just makes it more horrifying. But what is really horrifying is the people doing like these very violent acts. But we get Hippolyta. She goes to the space Hubble, to the little telescope Hubble, and she's trying to figure out how to work. There's a even bigger machine with even like planets around it. It's like this circular. There's like these rings. And there's like planets, or it looks like planets or replicas of planets, or maybe even universes, maybe even dimensions on it. And she's trying to figure out how to sort of twist and make it to get it to work and get it to open up something. During this, though, we do get a scene of Tick in one of his relatives' house that was related to Hannah and knew Hannah during the time, and knew his mother during the time, and how she doesn't really remember, any sort of, book or anything like that, but she does have some scrapbooks that he can look through. While he's in there, he sees I don't know, he feels, I guess, something on his back, and he looks at this mark on his back. I don't know where the mark is from or what it was supposed to signify. Somebody let me know what they think, but it was this very weird moment where he sort of takes off his shirt in the middle of this woman's house, and he sort of looks in the mirror at, this scar on his back. I'm just wondering where, I forget possibly where it might have come from. I'm wondering if it's a callback to Korea, and his sort of interaction, I guess you want to call it that, with Jiha, and how she sort of wrapped her sort of, I want to call them tentacles, but they're actually tails around him. I'm wondering if that is what that injury is from, and that's what the callback was. Is it sort of alluding to the fact that he's going to die? I'm not sure, but it's a very eerie and weird moment. And then he gets a call from Letty, who essentially finds, Hippolyta's, the machine that Hippolyta's been working on, and she calls Tick and tells him that she knows, Hippolyta knows what's going on, and that she's been, she's essentially trying to figure out what's going on with George, what happened with George, and what happened with Uncle George, and that she's on her way somewhere, and that she's going to give him the coordinates to go find her, because she might get herself into trouble. And I found this scene, I had a few issues with this scene. One, because Hippolyta's been spending weeks trying to figure out she's been spending weeks trying to figure out how to work this machine. It takes Letty a few minutes, seconds, possibly, unless there was like, I didn't see a notebook anywhere around where Hippolyta's stuff where she might have wrote stuff down. So maybe she did, but even so, she was writing stuff down in like equations and math equations that I could not comprehend or couldn't understand. So it's just like, I don't know how Letty figured it out, and so if Hippolyta spent weeks trying to figure this thing out, and it took Letty only a couple of seconds, I'm just like, that seemed a little unrealistic to me. Also, Tick busts in. So we hear, we go back to the scene with Hippolyta, and she's in the, sort of telescope Hubble trying to figure out this machine, because she sees also the same inscription on one of the devices where she can stick the key into that she got from the other machine of the solar system. And we hear Lancaster's men, police officers, sort of talking about how, it's a good thing that Lancaster sort of kept this space open. He doesn't really know how to work the machine yet, which I thought was also a great nod that, these white people, like, they can't really figure shit out, but these black people are. I really like that sort of subtle shade that was thrown in there. But they catch her, of course, in there, and they start to question her. And then all of a sudden, Tick, busts through the door, knocks out one of, is fighting with one of, is fighting with one of the policemen, Hippolyta is fighting with the other policeman with the gun. And it's just like, first of all, how did Tick get from St. Louis to Kansas in so little time? Like this just didn't make any logical sense to me. I was like, this is kind of unrealistic. Also, the fight scene I felt like was a little sloppy. It could have been better executed. I just think the whole sort of situation was sloppy, to be honest. I didn't understand it. Like, this is the part where I feel like the director is sort of imposing too much and trying to like make stuff happen instead of just letting stuff naturally occur and happen. And I felt like this scene was just very, the whole situation was just very rushed. We see Hippolyta start playing with the machine, and it sort of opens up this sort of time ripple or something like this rip in the time continuum or something like that. When we see like flashes, it's like against the wall and open, it's like these flashes. Tick knocks knocks one of the police officers. Hippolyta ends up shooting one of the police officers. He actually falls on, another one of these, Eurythia blue books. So Hippolyta ends up shooting one of the police officers. Tick then throws one of the guys into the sort of time ripple or the time, continuum ripple or whatever it is. And then him and Hippolyta both get sucked in. Hippolyta, we see her and Tick sort of go their separate ways though. Hippolyta finds herself on this planet. Or I don't know what the hell it is. We don't really get to know what it is. We don't get to know what anything is in this sort of scene, in these scenes where Hippolyta is jumping through time. She meets first this sort of black Afro-futuristic woman with an afro, but also she kind of has like a cyborg body. She has a couple henchmen. They meet her outside of their little, I don't know what you want to call it. There's this like dome on the opposite side. And she tells her that she is, her name is I Am. She is, essentially. We don't really get to know much about this character. It does sort of look like a version of the Eurythia Blue character that Dee has been drawing. We've seen Dee draw throughout the series. So I'm wondering, I don't really understand the construction of what was going on and how it was happening. But essentially, they take her, it's almost like a sort of alien, kidnapping, abduction kind of thing. And, the woman keeps saying the same, this black sort of Afro-futuristic woman keeps saying the same thing to her, you are not imprisoned, you can leave whenever you want, or something to that effect. You're not in prison. I guess essentially saying that all she has to do is open her mind. They've sort of inserted this thing into her arm, some type of device that sort of, lights purple. It has some type of purple essence in it. Hippolyta, of course, trying to breaks the things in her arm, and she starts bleeding out. Of course, they come in. The lady comes in. She tries to fight the lady as well, and she tells her, "I am." She's telling her, open your mind. Who are you? Where do you want to be? Where are you? Where do you want to be? And she says, Hippolyta sort of screams out, "I want to be," very randomly. She screams out, "I want to be in Paris, dancing on stage with Josephine Baker." And then she is sort of transported. We sort of get these moments where she's transported, almost like to me it looks kind of like the Milky Way a little bit. I don't know if it's a Milky Way or a black hole or what is it. I don't know anything about the construction of what's going on here. But we see her with Josephine Baker. She has these moments. I found these scenes very beautiful. I found these scenes visually to be very appealing. I saw the scenes where she's sort of flying through the sort of space-time continuum, like, to be very beautiful, very just gorgeous, very regal. When she's on stage with Josephine Baker, it was just very fun, very energetic, just very lively. And it just seems like, for the first time in her life, we see, Ingenue Ellis's character Hippolyta just be free and be herself, or be whoever she wants to be, and just, sort of free from the constraints and from the stress of having to live such a hard, Black American life in, America, in sort of, the time of segregation, and Jim Crow. And she even has a sort of sit-down conversation with Josephine Baker, where she says almost like they had made me lynch myself without even realizing. I didn't even know what freedom felt like. I didn't even know I could be this free, or I could feel this great. And it makes me want to just kill white folks. And I really love, like, Ingenue Ellis is really delivering those lines. Those are supposed to be very hard-hitting lines, and she delivers them very, very well. We also see Hippolyta then go to, when she says, I am Hippolyta. And so we sort of see her go to the original Amazons, or, the real life versions of the Amazons, not the sort of mythological versions of the Amazons in Africa. And we see her training to be a warrior and training to fight and stand up for herself. And we see this sort of warrior woman sort of teaching her to be tough, that we can't win. They tell us, that we're weak, that we're feeble, that we're just women, that we're all this stuff, and you need to find the inner strength within you to sort of get that battle cry and that battle warrior out of you. And we see her sort of progress over time, training consistently with this sort of head sort of lead general warrior African Amazon woman. And she sort of becomes sort of the head head warrior in charge, and she leads all these Black women into battle against these white men, sort of slit these white men's throats. They beat their asses. They really don't stand any chance. They're in this very sort of regal golden armor, with the feathers on them, and these big ass machete swords. We also get her to sort of say, I want to go back to George. I am also his wife. And then we see them sort of have this conversation together about how, he sort of helped her shrink herself and helped her sort of, make herself, smaller, and didn't really push her to sort of go for her dreams in the way that he should. And Uncle George has been sort of like the quintessential good sort of Black man throughout this entire series. The sort of pure, sort of, loving Black man, or the a vision of a Black man that most people would like to see. And to see that he's still even a little bit problematic, because, he also, attributed to the fact that she didn't really follow her dream, that she shrunk herself, that she, downplayed her intelligence and all this other stuff to sort of be his wife and sort of play second fiddle to him. And he pushes back a little bit, but then he sort of just accepts it, and he says, I'm sorry, I apologize. I didn't mean to sort of make you feel small. That wasn't my intent. And all that other good stuff. And so they have a really nice conversation, and then they go off together on this sort of like very very sort of Star Trekian adventure, to me it seemed like. And then of course at the end, we see her go back to the Black woman, the Eurythia Blue woman, I am, and she sort of asks her, how was her adventures. And I think the main thing that I really got from that, the hard-hitting line, was this idea that, she says, Hippolyta tells her, how can I go back to Earth? How can I shrink myself? How can I shrink all of who I am back into that small person of Hippolyta? I can't, she was so small, she was so tiny, and I'm so much more than that. But then she says that Dee needs me, Dee is going to need me. But then at the end, we don't see her come back to the time ripple. We see Tick instead come back to the time ripple with, with a copy of the book of the actual Lovecraft Country, which I feel like, which is really interesting that we're also imposing the text on to like this series. He traveled to a different world or something like that, or did he travel to a different alternate universe? We also get this idea that isn't really fleshed out well with throughout the entirety of this sort of time travel. We're sort of confronted with the fact that it might not even be time travel at all, that it might in fact just be like Hippolyta tells Uncle George essentially that, I think this is like the other world theory of alternate universes and alternate time planes and other stuff like that. So it's like, even Uncle George asks, well, in your world I'm dead, but am I dead? Am I dead? Is this the past, or am I just alive in another world? And like I feel like this just I don't know how to feel about this. Like the world building and construction was just very sloppy. Like it feels like this Eurythia Blue lady is like the sort of, I don't know, game master in a way. Like she's sort of putting all, like she sort of controls and watches the universes and the different alternate universes and time planes, and she exists outside of these alternate realities. But that's not really explained in there. That's sort of me putting my own assumptions onto what I got visually. Time travel is always hard to pull off. Time travel, dealing with space, dealing with the space-time continuum, dealing with anything that has to do with sort of science is always hard to deal with. I feel like they should have leaned more into like magic, and this is like misunderstood. Like they've leaned into a little other times that sometimes magic is just misunderstood science. So like I don't understand why that couldn't have been pushed more here. Like we couldn't have got more about who Eurythia Blue as a character was, instead of her just saying I am all the time. Like I get it, you exist, but like other than you just existing, are you like the game master in this whole alternate universes, and you just control everything, and you can come out and shift out when you want to, and you exist outside of people's realities and other realities or something like that in other universes? Like what is your purpose here? Who are you? I feel like hopefully it comes back up. And also this fact that like D is sort of drawing this woman. Is it like a dream? Like I'm just very confused. I'm very confused, and like the writing about this was very confusing. Also, I had some issues with the fact that the dialogue didn't feel natural. Like don't get me wrong, there were a lot of great lines, amazing insights onto this idea of black. I got black feminism. I got black female Afrofuturism. It felt like an essay, though. It felt like I was reading an essay. I think this would have been a great essay. It's a great essay. It's a great essay piece. Does it drive the plot forward? It didn't for me at all. Like this didn't drive. This had nothing to do with our main focus and the main sort of issues and context of the whole sort of series. This was completely outside of the entirety of the series, and we've sort of gotten these. And this is the second time. Like I felt like even Meet Me in the Daegu, that was a great episode. But is it actually going to push the story forward in any way? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if it pushes the story forward in any way. Like, I just don't get it. Like, how does it? It feels like for these last two episodes, we've sort of gotten off track from the original plot line. And I felt like there could have been a way we could have played with time travel. We could have played with all this and still kept it true to the source material and to the main focus of our characters and to the main reason why they're even all here and their sort of intentions and the actions, the main sort of actions, central actions within this series. But it still feels like we've gotten off course. And I feel like these last two episodes, 6 and 7, they're great episodes if what Misha Green is planning to do is to create, spin-offs. Like I would love to see a spin-off of Jamie Chung and her character Jiha. I would love to see a spin-off of Hippolyta, and her or Eurythia Blue, this Eurythia Blue I Am lady, in a spin-off. But if we're not going to get that, I'm going to be really pissed off. I felt like I wanted to also get more about Ingenue Ellis's Hippolyta's character. I want to get more about her backstory. Where did she come from? What was her family life? How did she even meet George? we don't really get anything about that. And I feel like we could have also done a little bit of that in this episode as well, because if we had stuck to sort of a simple sort of even if we had gone to alternate realities of Hippolyta's life as a little girl, as a teenager, as sort of in her 20s meeting George or something like that, like I don't feel like I learned anything about who Hippolyta was in this. I learned what she wants to be. I didn't learn who she was and how this also plays into the main plot. And how is Hippolyta going to get back? Is she just going to I am herself into the alternate reality once she feels like it? And come and save the day? Like that's what I'm wondering. Like, is Jihad going to come to America? Is Hippolyta going to leave sort of this sort of the absence of time and space with I am this Eurythia Blue character and come back whenever she wants to and save the day at the end? Like, is that their purpose? Like I don't understand. I don't get it. I don't get it. And I really felt like it needs to get like we've sort of, I don't want to say we've wasted 2 episodes because the episodes are really compelling, but they don't have nothing to do with the main plot. And it feels like my worry is that the next 3 episodes are going to be very rushed, and very sloppy. Last and also least, we have Christina, the colonizing Caucasoid, and her designated black friend Ruby. I mean, I don't mean to like diss Ruby all the time, but they really have kind of made Ruby like the racist white girl's designated black friend. I do have black friends, Ruby. Like, that is crazy to me. I don't understand. I don't understand what is going on with this storyline. We see Ruby and Christina pick up where they left off, essentially with Christina revealing that she has been William all the time and also fucked Ruby while she was William, which would fuck me up personally. But for some reason, they sort of, harp on this like tension, like this romantic tension between Christina and Ruby in this moment in these scenes back at her house. And it's just so weird. Like the tension between them is very weird. At least the tension between Ruby, like she's looking at Christina like, and she's talking to her like, don't lie to me anymore. Just don't lie to me anymore. And I'm like, she's white and racist. What do you think she's gonna do? I mean, this is the most stupidest thing I've ever heard. Don't lie to me. Don't be deceitful anymore. Don't tell me more lies. Isn't that just what racist white people do? Like, what are you talking about? Like, what is Ruby even begging here for? Unless she is in love with Christina, which I think they're also trying to work on and work off of. That Ruby has feelings for Christina, which I don't like. I'm just like, they really have taken Ruby's character all the way down into the white racist rabbit hole. Like, good gracious. Now she's in love with this racist white woman who admits that essentially we see them in the basement of, her house that she has on like I don't know if you want to call it the west side of Chicago or whatever it is, or the north side of Chicago, the north side of Chicago. And, we see her have the two people, we see her have the dead bodies of William and that woman that also worked for her on the grounds of the Braithwaite Lodge, that got knocked out by Letty that last time and died, I guess ended up dying. And so we see that she is using the blood from their bodies to create a potion that that sort of creates the metamorphosis and turns her and Ruby, Christina and Ruby, into these people, into William and into this other woman who we don't really know whose name. We didn't really get to know her name or something like that. I don't really think she's all that important, but she is sort of harvesting this sort of the secret to sort of being able to turn into somebody else and to sort of have this metamorphosis is you need to sort of harvest that person's blood or body or organs. I don't know exactly how she's doing it. We see them hooked up to machines, but we aren't really let in a lot into terms of how, like, what is going on here, how like the mechanics of this is working. Also, is that a violation of consent if somebody, since Christina sort of presented herself as a man at first, and I guess Ruby thought that she was having sex with a man? but she was really having sex with Christina. Like, is that a violation of consent? I'm just wondering. I leave that down for the comment section below. I'm not sure if that's a violation of consent. I might be thinking too deeply into it. But then we see Ruby sort of going along about her day, like with an attitude, acting like a badass or whatever, acting like she's supposed to be real cool, too cool for school. She's wearing, I guess, glasses and shades and I don't know, she's kind of sulking around. I'm like, girl, what are you sulking for? You're literally working with white supremacists. What are you sulking for? Like, why are you acting like you just the hottest shit on the block? Why? Because you with a white woman? Like, I don't understand. I don't understand. I thought it was real corny to me. It was real stupid. I thought she was acting very strange, very weird. It didn't make any sense to me. It's like, and then she's just going on about her day as if she's not over here planning the end of the world with white people. Like, you're not planning a white supremacist takeover. And like I've seen people also say that they sort of have sympathized with Christina after that interaction she has with Ruby down there in the basement. How she talks about how they killed her lover William, and that's why she wants to sort of take over Lancaster, which we all know is like a lie. Like Christina wants to take over because she wants to take over. That's why she wants to take over. Christina, that's a lie. It's a lie because why she tells Ruby half truths the whole time. She doesn't tell Ruby about her father and about the fact that she knows also her sister and possibly her brother-in-law. We'll see. We'll see how that pans out. But she doesn't tell Ruby all this information that she knows her sister Letty and has got her sister Letty killed. Nor does she tell her about how her father was an all-powerful wizard, witch, whatever, warlock, and that she ended up killing him as well. Like, she only tells Ruby half truths, and Ruby's sitting here like, don't tell me any more lies, racist white woman. Don't tell me any more lies. That's all racist white people do, is tell you lies. Like, they've just made sort of Ruby's whole character sort of insufferable, which I really don't like. They haven't really discussed. I remember I mentioned last time that they should bring up the issue of colorism, and they have not yet. They touched on it a little bit when Ruby is sitting in the bar and William comes up to her and she starts talking about how she's viewed or whatever as a black woman, and also in her own. We get it a little bit, but we really don't get colorism between Letty and Ruby. We don't really get any type of commentary on it at all. Which is like there's only 3 episodes left, so I'm guessing we're just not going to get it. They're just not going to discuss it or talk about it. They're just not going to talk about it, which is fine, even though it's like clearly there and it hangs in the air awkwardly, but nobody ever mentions it. I don't understand why. Maybe it's because they spend a lot of time on other stuff that I don't think really matters, but that's just my opinion. But let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below about this episode 7. I know I had a lot of different opinions. They weren't exactly all positive about this episode. So let me know what you guys thought. I know that I know a lot of people really liked this episode because of the fact that we just came off of the Breonna Taylor case. There's a very defeatist sort of vibe in the air around that whole case, even though I really wasn't surprised by it because we've seen this happen time and time again before. Like, how many cases have we actually won? How many cases, Sandra Bland, Mike Brown, Philando Castile, Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin. Like, we don't win any cases. We just don't win any cases. And so I just wasn't expecting like Breonna Taylor's case to be won either, or any sort of ground to be made in the Breonna Taylor case. And even if it was, because it was just a grand jury, because they could have sent it to trial and still sort of knocked it down there as well. So like, I just don't have any faith in the system personally, but I know that this episode meant a lot to a lot of people because of the focus on Hippolyta as a black woman, and coming off of that Breonna Taylor case, which had a lot of people feeling defeated and sort of down and sort of sad and also depressed, and just that the system never works. I know I've sort of become numb to it almost a little bit to myself in terms of, that fact that justice or going through the justice system is really going to get black people, anything. I don't really believe that. I just don't. White people have shown me too many times that they're just not, the justice system isn't built for black people at all. I think this series is very timely. Even though I didn't necessarily like this particular episode, I think this series is still very timely in terms of everything that's going on. I think that a lot of the conversations that they were having back then, and the video conversations that we're having today, right now, which is also very sad, that we have not progressed, since the 50s or even before, since the 20s. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below, and I will see you all next time for the next video.